Welcome to Tips for the Transition, where we have deep, meaningful conversations about life. We talk about how significant changes like divorce, grief, and career change can affect us, our family, our relationships, and our work, and how to move beyond them. I'm your host, Maria Tomás-Keegan, certified career and life coach for women, and I'm here to support you through the messy seasons of life so you can answer big questions like who am I now and how do I move on from here? If you're ready to consider new options, be inspired, and meet incredible women who are on this life journey with us, you're in the right place. You'll find something in each episode to give you hope and encourage you to move from panic to powerful, from rocky to resilient, and from upside down to right side up. This is Tips for the Transition. Hello and welcome. This is Tips for the Transition, and we're just a few weeks into season 5 of our podcast. And in case you've never watched before, we have been on Voice America TV for the last 16 months or so, and have been the number one most watched podcast on that network. And now we are expanding our reach. Going live in this new live streaming arena, new to me anyway, and streaming live on LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube, plus all of the favorite audio channels. We're on all of those as well. So I hope you enjoy these weekly conversations with inspiring women. We come to you every Wednesday at 10 a.m. Mountain Standard Time. And we are here to help women around the world become more confident and resilient and brave in their careers and their life. I'm your host, Maria Tomás-Keegan. I'm a career and life coach for women. And I want you to know that each episode we create of this podcast creates a resource to help women who are challenged in some way in their life or their career. So if something strikes a nerve for you as you hear me or my guest talking about the different subjects we cover every week, take a look at the comments or the show notes below the video so that you can connect with us and continue the conversation in the best way for you. So let's get started. My guest today is Janine Hunt, and she's coming to us all the way from Brittany, France. And we're going to talk about getting in our own way and impeding our progress and our success. So often we stay stuck too long in one place, and that could be in our career or in relationships or even our business, because we don't understand what's holding us back. So we're going to talk about that today. Let me tell you a little bit more about Janine. She is a natural health therapist for over 30 years, a hypnotherapist, and a student of the Ageless Wisdom teachings. She hosts a podcast of her own called Sort Yourself Out, and has a membership community called Better Than Happy. I love the name of that. She is on a mission to teach powerful techniques and practices to help you master your mind and emotions, free yourself from what's holding you back, and expand your consciousness and nourish your soul. So we can all use all of that, right? So listen up and let's get started. We call this episode, Are You Sabotaging Your Personal and Professional Growth? I am so eager to get this conversation started. And I'm going to bring, and I did that wrong. There we go. Hello, Janine.
Hi, Maria.
Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for coming to us all the way from France, where it's evening there and morning here.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for having me. It's such a pleasure to be here.
All right, let's get, this is going to be a great conversation. So let's get that started, okay? I'd like to set the stage a little bit. I want to talk first about what it might feel like. I said that in the intro that we might not even recognize that we are holding ourselves back. So, what might be some of the clues that we can notice if we are?
I think often, like you said, we feel this stuckness inside of ourselves. Like we've got this urge to move forward, but there's just something holding us back. And sometimes it can be really difficult to articulate it. And another thing can be like almost where you've got that Groundhog Day feeling where you're just stuck in a pattern and you're repeating the past and you really want to move forward but feel this inability or this confusion about where you want to go and what are the right things for you to do. And the world has just changed enormously in the last couple of years in the way that people work. So it's a really interesting time, actually, because so many people have been opened up to new ways that they can work and new options. And lots of people are thrilled with the idea of being able to work from home. So I think that it's a really fantastic time to kind of take stock of what matters to you and what's important. And I think our conversation today is going to be good in helping people to realize ways that they might be holding themselves back, the kind of sabotage that creeps in. And it can come from, we're going to discuss this later. There are plenty of places that the sabotage affects us, but it can often really hit us in our self-worth and our self-esteem so that we might feel like we're not good enough when we don't have it in us. And it's a really important time to change, but there's just that, oh, I just need to jump that hurdle and move forward.
Okay, I thank you for kind of framing that for us because I truly believe in it. And with some of the women I work with, they're not quite in touch with what it is. So so it's that feeling of just not quite knowing what it is, but feeling something's off.
Yeah.
Okay, so you touched on self-sabotage. And I know this comes in the forms of beliefs, uh, thoughts, habits. Where do they come from? Where does that start? And why is it so difficult for us to release that, free ourselves from that?
Well, from the time that we're born, and well into our childhoods, but particularly up to about the age of 7, we are like sponges and we're learning all about the world from those people around us. So we get ideas about ourselves and also the way the world works, predominantly from authority figures like our parents and other family members and teachers and the society and the culture we live in as well. And even from things that we see on TV and from the media and from our friends as we're growing up. And all of these relationships can instill ideas into our consciousness. And because we're usually taught to respect authority and to obey our elders, we believe what they tell us and show us, and we take it as truth. And these things become beliefs. And this is fine if we're surrounded by really enlightened people and they're instilling ideas into us that really serve our unfoldment and our highest good. But unfortunately, this is rarely the case. And we can end up with some pretty disempowering ideas about ourselves and also about the world. And when we're in a time of career transition, we might find these kinds of beliefs rearing their ugly heads and sabotaging our success and our comfort around making change. So we might have feelings like, I'm not smart enough, I just don't have what it takes, or it's not safe for me to change. Or you might have heard this when you were growing up, like you have to work really hard to be successful. You might feel, oh, I'm just too old to pursue the career of my dreams. You might have heard, you just can't trust anybody in this world. Or you might think, no one will hire me because of my age or because I lack really impressive accomplishments. And there's even like this weird little thing that you might have heard when you were a kid that sticks with you and affects you to this day. Something like, put your hat on or you'll get sick. So these are just a few examples, but the upshot is that these things are beliefs that we have taken into our hearts, and for the most part, they do not help or serve us. And usually they damage and hinder us, and they can have a huge effect on our self esteem and our ability to trust ourselves and to make our way in the world. And often this can be summed up as one core belief, and it's very prevalent in our society, and that is, I'm not enough, I'm not good enough. And that becomes a really huge source of self sabotage and those other beliefs as well, any self sabotaging beliefs, because they become the filters through which we see and experience the world. And they become a part of our operating system. And for the most part, they're buried in our subconscious minds. We're not even aware that they are there. And here's where they're even more insidious. And that is, there's a universal principle from the Ageless Wisdom teachings that says that energy follows thought. So when we see life through these filters and these limiting beliefs, we're actually creating the circumstances and events of life according to these beliefs. So if I'm always feeling like I'm not good enough, I can't start again now, I'm such a loser, well, guess what?
You
Life
can't.
attracts to me
Yeah.
people and circumstances and events that support this belief and that will continue to prove that dynamic in my life. And this happens at a vibrational and feeling level. Like attracts like, and our dominant thoughts and feelings are highly magnetic. So our limiting beliefs become self-fulfilling prophecies in our lives.
Yeah.
And it can be difficult to get ourselves out of these beliefs and the patterns of behavior that evolve from them, because they are operating at a subconscious level, and they will carry on repeating and manifesting in our lives until we decide to become more aware and to clear ourselves of them. And this is really important when we're switching careers or starting a business, because this can be a time when there's already a lot going on and it's natural to feel uncertain about how to proceed. But we make it way, way harder on ourselves if we've got unhelpful self talk swirling around constantly in our heads, telling us we can't do it or that we don't deserve it or that we're too old or whatever.
Right.
So, in times of career transition, it's really vital that we give ourselves a really good chance to move forward unhindered and free of the habits and beliefs that sabotage our confidence or that bring up patterns of procrastination or comparisonitis, where we're comparing ourselves with
Right.
others, usually unfavorably, and ultimately sabotaging our success and fulfillment in what we want to do. And this is why I like to teach what I call top-down techniques that really have a capacity to raise our awareness so that we can become conscious of all of these programs and patterns we've got operating in ourselves that are sabotaging our success and happiness and fulfillment.
And what comes to me, perfectionism, by the way, is one of those too, right? That can sabotage us. I call myself a recovering perfectionist, so I know of what I speak in that regard. Um,
That's a biggie.
but it it occurs to me that, and I talk with my clients about this all the time, that we have to give ourselves permission to examine all of those beliefs and thoughts and habits so that we can choose to change them so that they serve us better now.
Yeah.
So I think I love what you're saying about where they come from and why they're so difficult for us to kind of release and choose different thoughts that will lead to establishing different beliefs and ultimately different habits that support us. So, you touched on a term that I would love for you to dive into a little bit for us, this idea of top down techniques and practices that you mentioned. Um, how do those help us to create a lasting change when we recognize what it is we want to do?
Well, top down techniques and practices are really interesting because they help us to heal not only specific issues in our lives, but all areas, aspects, and moments of our lives through the higher awareness that they generate. So, the idea with top down techniques is that we manage the lower with the higher. We use the higher, creative, and inspired parts of ourselves, the mind and the spirit, to manage the lower parts, our emotional and physical natures. So they raise our awareness and they expand our consciousness of our own true nature and the nature of reality. And they really enable you to propel yourself forward in your personal growth and evolution, and also your service in the world. So, when we use top down techniques, we facilitate lasting change because these techniques get your mind working for you and not against you, which is often the default mode. So, when your mind is working for you and not against you, you're able to respond afresh in the moment and you're free from those patterns and the knee jerk reactions of the past and all of those self sabotaging limiting beliefs we were talking about. And a top down approach is essential for our overall well being and to help us to move through transitions and periods of growth and change where we're dealing with new challenges and needing to release old programming that doesn't serve us. Because, as Albert Einstein said, no problem can be solved from the same level of consciousness that created it. So, top down techniques create an exponential shift in your life because you are elevating your consciousness and cultivating powerful inner resources whose benefits radiate out to uplift all areas of your life.
Wow, that sounds very that sounds very cool, and like that's where we want to be. And when as you're talking about top down techniques, I'm thinking about top down, right? Literally top down, right? It's the thoughts we have and the faith we have, the belief we have. in ourselves, and that will help guide the actions we take, the words we say. Do I have that right?
Yeah, that's right. And like I say, it's about getting your mind working for you and not against you, so that you're plugging into the higher parts of yourself and nourishing the higher parts. And it's like you manage the higher and the lower takes care of itself.
Mm, yeah, that sounds very simple, not easy necessarily to do, and it takes practice. So, having guidance, someone who can support you through that process, is a very good idea. Someone like you, Janine.
And you.
Um, all right. So, I know that you talk about three phases of transformation. So, what are they, and how can we activate those in our lives?
Well, the three phases of transformation is it's a top-down approach that's all about, as I said, getting your mind working for you and not against you. As long as you have conflicting or limiting beliefs or patterns of behavior buried in your subconscious mind, they will always win out and stop you from making the change you want, even if you really want it. So here's an overview of the three phases of transformation. Phase number one is raise your awareness. So this phase involves us becoming aware of what is going on in the subconscious mind. Because believe me, as I discovered when I really started sorting myself out, it can be an unholy mess in there. And until you shine a light on all of the crap that's going on in there, you're at its mercy, and it will be a major source of self sabotage. Phase number two is liberate yourself. And this phase is all about liberating ourselves from the unhelpful ideas and untrue suppositions and limiting beliefs that we do discover lurking in our subconscious minds that block our success and our aspirations. And phase number three is reprogram your mind. In this phase, we reprogram our minds at the subconscious level with beliefs that facilitate lasting change. And there are two important aspects to this phase. Firstly, we choose the beliefs, the helpful, nourishing, and progressive beliefs that we are going to install in our minds. We use our intention and focus and concentration to empower and energize the things we want to create and to see and experience more of in our lives. And we stop focusing on all the stuff we discovered in phase one, because, as I said, energy follows thought, and we want to let go of the limiting beliefs and the disempowering self talk that form our self sabotage. And the other aspect of phase three is that we use techniques and practices that make the mind receptive and that allow us to install the beliefs at the subconscious level where they will be accepted. So this makes a huge difference from trying to install new beliefs at the conscious level. So those are the three phases of transformation, and they're all about making the unconscious conscious, freeing ourselves from our hindrances, and then consciously choosing and installing at a deep level the beliefs that will uplift our well being and get us where we want to go. It's about transformation from the inside out. And that is the kind of transformation that works. And this is really important in times of transition to get your mind working for you and not against you, because by their very nature, transitions can be messy and destabilizing and unnerving. The old job is ending, or we're no longer in alignment with it. and we yearn for something more fulfilling that just speaks to us on a higher level. So the old thing's on the way out, but the new thing is not yet established. And it can be difficult to articulate what the new job or business or opportunity might look like. But if we're operating on our current knowledge without trying to release the old, outworn conditioning, we risk recreating the past.
Right.
It's people, that's why people continually experience the same kind of dynamic in their lives. Perhaps they're always ending up with a power hungry or disagreeable boss, or jobs where you're really not valued or your talents aren't appreciated. And you might have seen this kind of dynamic in a friend who attracts the same kind of partner in their lives again and again. It's the same guy essentially in a different body. So transitions are excellent times to consciously bring in fresh energy and to release the old and to cultivate the new. And that's the main word here, is consciously. Because if we're not operating consciously, if we're not aware of what's going on inside of us, then we're on autopilot
Right.
and we're in default mode and we're at the mercy of our conditioning. Swiss psychiatrist Carl Jung said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate."
Yeah.
So, transitions are times when we really need to make a shift, not just in what we are doing externally, but in what we are internally, which will then outpicture in our lives, in the circumstances and events and experiences and meetings and relationships and opportunities that reflect the inner change. The outer change will naturally flow from the inner adjustments we make and the higher awareness that we cultivate.
I love that. And it's so true. When we are not aware of um, what it is we are doing, repeating over and over again, that keeps us from moving beyond where we're at, and especially when we're not happy with that. When we're happy with it, it's a different story, right?
Yeah.
But when we are not happy with it, understanding what it is that is holding us back, what we're believing, what we're thinking, is holding us back. And as you say, once you're aware, you need to consciously make some choices about what it is you want to change, and then figure out what it is you want to believe instead that will move you forward. I love this. I think this is an important conversation to have for people who are where their life is changing. They may not feel in control of it. It may be career related. It may be, as I said earlier, relationship related. You just touched on that as well. Wherever in our lives we're not happy, we're not content, we're not feeling fulfilled, we should take a look and dig in. And as you say, the top down approach. So we're running a little short on time, Janine. So
Okay.
I'd love to talk about, if you could give some, before we get to the tips, I'd like to ask you if there are some top down techniques that help us to master our mind and emotions.
Sure.
Can you quickly cover a couple of those?
Yeah, my favorite technique is meditation, and another one is mindfulness. And they're both excellent for not only training our minds, but also achieving inner peace. And I just count them as the best things that I've ever done to improve my well being. And they're great because they both incorporate all three phases of transformation. And there's a real especially in meditation, what I call the minor miracle of meditation, where you become able to observe your thoughts. And the magic moment is when you realize you are not your thoughts, you are not your emotions, and you are the observer of your thoughts and emotions. And in the Ageless Wisdom teachings, this is known as cultivating the attitude of the detached observer. And this ability translates into your daily life to free you from your knee-jerk reactions and that conditioning, and it frees you up to choose new ways of expressing yourself.
I love that. If you can, and this takes practice, but step out, whatever the situation is, step outside yourself and look back at it objectively as though it's not you, because it isn't. I love
Yeah,
that. That's
yeah,
a wonderful technique and practice for people that they can actually employ that. Does take practice, but try it. It's really powerful. I love
yeah.
that. All right. So at the end of every episode that we do here on this show, our loyal viewers tell us it's their favorite part. And it's why I call the show Tips for the Transition. But my guests share practical and easy to implement tips for you. And I'm going to ask Janine to share some of hers now. So, Janine, what's your first tip?
My first tip is a technique a bit like what you were just talking about, Maria, where you can kind of interrupt a limiting belief by challenging the belief, by introducing doubt about it and challenging its validity. So all you can do, it's really simple. You just ask yourself, where did this belief come from? This is obviously for beliefs that you're aware of, you know? So you say, where did this belief come from? And who did I get this belief from? And what authority did that person who held that belief have? And is it relevant to me? And is it based on anything that is real and tangible? So the more you question the origin of a belief and ask yourself why you are holding it, the more you'll begin to doubt it and question its validity, and you'll no longer fully hold that belief to be true. So that's my first tip.
Yeah, and I think that the key here is now, the word now, right? So the belief may have served you in the past, and that's okay. But how do you feel about it now? Who who you are, the journey you've been on, where you're at now. I love that. That's a great tip. All right, what's your second one?
My next one is to try to maintain a playful attitude about your life and
Mm,
your career transition. Life is all about trial and error. So you're always going to be learning and shifting and trying new things.
yeah.
But when you can bring a playful approach to it, you'll not only feel lighter and better, but things will flow for you with more ease and grace, and it'll just be a much more pleasurable and pleasurable and agreeable experience, a lighter feeling to it.
Yeah, have fun with it. Don't take yourself so seriously.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think the first tip, stepping out, examining your belief about it, is very. Those two go hand in hand really, really well. I love that. Do you have another one?
I have two more. Would you rather I just shift
Okay.
it to one?
No, just let's go.
Okay. So my next one is to develop the mindset of expecting great things to happen for you, that life conspires to bring you what you need in the form of people and opportunities and resources and meetings and circumstances. As we said before, energy follows thought. So you could try saying to yourself upon awakening, wow, I wonder what amazing and beautiful things are coming my way today. And then a really important part of that is acknowledging them when they do. And this really helps us to build up faith and trust and confidence that life is always supporting us. So that to me is a really good belief to consciously adopt.
Yeah, I agree. I so agree. Hmm. Very good ones. Very, all right. One last one.
Okay, this is my biggest and most important heartfelt wish for everybody.
Okay.
We are all here in this body, in this life, on this planet, to cultivate our skills and talents and qualities and gifts, and then
Mm.
to share them with the world. So, if I could distill that whopper of a question about what the purpose of life is into one concise little nugget that is yet a universal concept that applies to everybody, that would be the answer. We are here to cultivate our talents and to share them for the benefit of the world.
Mm.
So, the ageless wisdom teachings tell us that we have been cultivating these skills across countless incarnations. So, whatever you believe about reincarnation, focus on you and on what fires you up. Don't worry about what other people are doing. Don't compare yourself with them.
And
The
and
world relies on each
or
of
what
us.
other people think you should be doing.
Exactly. It's up to us to figure it out,
Yeah.
and the world relies on each of us doing our own thing in our own way and with our own particular flavor and slant and energy that only we can bring to it,
Right.
and then bringing that to bear in the world for the good of all, so that together we are creating this beautiful and harmonious whole that's full of fabulous, inspired, and inspiring little parts that are
Yeah.
us. So just go for it and do your thing.
And I love that you ended with that. I'd just like to add one little piece to that. Uh, the world feels like a really big place for me personally. And I like to think of the gifts and talents that I bring are here to enhance my world. So my world then spills out beyond. It's like a ripple we get to create. So if anybody else has the same problem I do with, being a light for the world or sharing my talents with the world, I like to think of it as my world, and then everyone I touch then gets to share further, and we create ripples that way. I love that.
Yeah,
Thank you
that's
so much,
great.
Janine.
Thank you.
All right. This is such great practical tips. These are simple, not necessarily easy, and they require practice. So, um, if you are in a place where you need or want help to do this, don't try to do it alone. There are so many people out here who can help you probably in your world. And now we're part of it. So I would love to, Janine, I am so sure that people are going to want to know how to connect with you. So, what's the one best way? And then I'll share in a minute how else they can get in touch with you. What's the one best way that people can see what you're all about?
The best way is to go to my website, which is theinspirationcloud.com.
Oh,
And
great.
there
Okay.
you'll find all about my podcast and other goodies. I've got lots of freebies there as well that you can download to help
That
you out.
is that is so wonderful. I really have enjoyed speaking with you today. Janine, thank you so much for being here and sharing your perspective on how we can break through what might be holding us back.
You're very welcome. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. All right, everyone. I want to I want to say thank you to you too. Thanks for watching and listening, and thank you for being a part of our community. As I said at the top of the show, as a career and life coach, I love creating resources for women, and I design every episode to share information to help you navigate your career and your life. So, if you want more information about Janine or about the work I do with my clients, remember to check out the show notes or the comments below the video. There are a number of different ways for you to get in touch with us, and there are uh, free offers that you can get. There are blogs and books and so many resources that are available to you from my guests and from me. So check out the show notes, and if you would like to continue the conversation, I have a Facebook group called the Career Transition Roadmap that we talk about this kind of stuff. So please take a look for it. There's a link below. You can join that, a request to join, and we can continue the chat. I want to remind you that we meet here every Wednesday at the same time, 10 a.m. Mountain Standard Time. I believe it's our time to thrive. So join me on that journey. I'm Maria Tomás-Keegan. Till next time, we're turning transition into triumph.